Spotlight is proudly sponsored by HEC Media, St. Louis's home for arts, education, and culture.
I love that ambition. I love that thinking large.
The women artists don't always get the same kind of attention that some of the better known ragtime artists get.
Give yourself a chance. Don't count yourself out before you even start.
Today on Spotlight, a group helping women succeed personally and professionally. Plus, a local startup developing a cellular therapy to help fight cancer. And then a book bringing to life the history of St. Louis's garment district. But first, 10 important moments in poet Emily Dickinson's life that shaped her and her work. It's Sunday and you're watching the multiple Emmy Award-winning Spotlight.
His fingers, as he passed, let go a music as of tunes blown tremulous in glass.
Emily Dickinson's life is a study in contrasts. She wrote nearly 1,800 poems but published very few in her lifetime. She lived her entire life in Amherst, Massachusetts, and never married, yet lived a vivid and often passionate life of the mind. Writer Martha Ackmann's new book about Dickinson chronicles 10 pivotal moments in the poet's life. More than a biography, These Fevered Days reads like a novel as we see the world through Dickinson's eyes.
There are so many myths about Dickinson, that she lost out in love, that she was this waif of Amherst, that she lived upstairs in her father's bedroom and never came out. But in reading her letters, all of them, all 3 volumes, over 1,000 letters, you see a different portrait.
Meticulously researched, 10 Fevered Days immerses the reader in Emily Dickinson's world to show us the real person and poet beyond the myth.
I didn't want to write an academic book. That's not what I do. I didn't want to write what's called a cradle-to-grave biography that had already been done. So that's what took me so long in trying to come up with the conceit for this book. And it really came from my students. I noticed that my Mount Holyoke students in the seminar, that when I wrapped the lesson around a particular day in Dickinson's life, they seemed to really get it. They really seemed to be more enlivened than usual. And choosing those days was great fun. I was president of the Emily Dickinson International Society for a while, and I called up my friends, other scholars, and said, which days would you choose? And they gave me some great advice. Some days I loved the notion of them, but I couldn't use. For example, Dickinson had this big shaggy dog named Carlo that followed her all around. Just loved Carlo. Most people think he was a big drooling Newfoundland. And they said, do a day when she got Carlo. Well, we don't know the day that she got Carlo. She doesn't mention that in the letter. And I was adamant that I wanted very specific dates, like Tuesday, August the 7th, 1862. It couldn't just be around a moment. So some of those days I had to throw out.
What was your favorite moment in her life when you were looking for those 10 pivotal moments?
So the day that I think I liked the most was when she was about in her 20s, and she was writing a letter to a cousin and recalling a day that they had spent together a couple of months early. And the letter goes something like this. The lines go, do you remember that October morning when our families went out riding in a carriage and you and I in the dining room decided to be distinguished? It's a great thing to be great, she said. So I love that ambition. I love that thinking large. I love that commitment to doing it big, and so that was one of the things I think that I brought that was somewhat new to our understanding of Dickinson, that there was this ambition. Dickinson took the long view and she had a very difficult time also letting go of poems. She was always rewriting them, sometimes years, decades later.
To find out what she says Emily Dickinson always kept in her pocket and hear more stories, watch the full interview at hecmedia.org.
Celebrate the best in locally produced professional theater. Stream the 2022 St. Louis Theater Circle Awards ceremony on Monday, March 28th at 7 p.m. exclusively on hecmedia.org, HEC Media's Facebook page, and HEC Media's YouTube channel.
This story is brought to you in partnership with STL Made.
All those things that you pretty much saw as a roadblock in your life, it's going to be removed when you're here.
Rung for Women is a career advancement and empowerment agency.
Rung is a space for women to help them get to that next level in their lives.
Here at Rung, we have a mandatory 6-week coaching program, and that's group coaching and in-person coaching, just general life coaching. We have childcare for whenever anyone comes up for a class. We have yoga classes. We have gardening time, and everything that is grown in our garden gets used in our kitchen downstairs. There is financial support services. There are career placement services. We also have access to counseling services. We have access to medical center. We have a full gym here. Everything here is free for members.
When I first signed up for the program, I was unemployed. I was pregnant and then the pandemic hit, and now I am working full-time at Square, and I love it.
In the 6 to 8 months I've been at Rung already, I have grown so much. I am going after my dreams, and if I hadn't gotten out of that stuck place in my life, it wouldn't have ever happened, and I really credit Rung for all of that.
Creating SMART goals was the theme of Rung, and that was something that translated with coaching, counseling, and then just in the courses that were available, like advanced professional skills. Just even walking through the doors, I felt wanted. I felt like we're here for you, and that's just a very different experience than I've ever been used to.
But the thing that's helped me the most has been building connections and friendships with the other women here, and just learning from them and sharing our stories and laughing together and crying together and growing together. And it's really just an experience that you can't really buy.
I knew that I was going to have an entire community in my corner.
I can come here and set up a day, basically, and just know I'll be at Rung that day and actually look forward to it. It frees me up to be a person instead of just a mom or an employee.
Women definitely put everybody else before they put themselves first. And to have a place like Rung that actually makes you do the work to put yourself forward is incredible.
And just give yourself a chance in anything. Just give yourself a chance. Don't count yourself out before you even start.
Visit thestl.com for more stories like this one.
HEC Media. Recognized, celebrated, honored time and again for excellence in the industry. Mid-America Emmys, Tellys, Natoas, Auroras, and other awards. HEC Media has been bringing home the hardware for over a decade. Hundreds of nominations and wins, from regional to international levels. Arts and education to author talks, magazine shows and documentaries. Individual craft achievements to overall excellence. Plus so much more. And although doing good work is its own reward, recognition, well, it's nice too. See what all the fuss is about. Find all of the award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
Cancer Moonshot has been reignited in 2022. President Biden spoke of it in his recent State of the Union address.
Cancer is the #2 cause of death in America, second only to heart disease. Last month, I announced the plan to supercharge the Cancer Moonshot that President Obama asked me to lead 6 years ago. Our goal is to cut cancer death rates by at least 50% over the next 25 years, and I think we can do better than that. Turn cancers from death sentences into treatable diseases. More support for patients and their families. To get there, I call on Congress to fund what I called ARPA-H. ARPA will have a singular purpose: to drive breakthroughs in cancer, Alzheimer's and diabetes, and more. A unity agenda for the nation.
The influx of federal dollars should help St. Louis area companies in the cancer research space, launching new innovations in the St. Louis growing biotech hub. One such company is Wugen, a St. Louis startup looking to harness the body's natural defenses against cancer.
And we hit start.
Supercharging particular immune cells and training those cells to become the natural killers they're meant to be. That's the idea behind new ammunition to combat a range of blood and solid tumor cancers. The St. Louis-based biotechnology startup company Wugen is developing a cellular therapy using natural killer cells, or NK cells, one of the body's natural defenses against cancer.
It's a supercharged NK that has enhanced killing, that has the ability to target cancer, selectively target cancer with minimal toxicities. We take NK cells from healthy donors, we modify them using a cytokine cocktail.
That chemical exposure is like basic training for cells, preparing the now enhanced natural killer cells to fight the cancer. Then, when the cellular therapy enters the body, in a way, it's like the NK cells remember their training. Having this memory of what to do is what researchers say is most effective at finding and destroying cancer cells that have learned to hide from the patient's immune system.
Our technology utilizes immune cells from any healthy donor. We grow these up to very large numbers in a dish. We teach them how to fight the cancer.
And expand them and cryopreserve them so that we can create a cellular product that is ready and frozen in advance to be able to treat patients at point of care.
Wugen's memory natural killer cell technology is called WuNK101. The therapy is part of a clinical trial targeting AML, acute myeloid leukemia, and it's designed to one day treat solid tumor cancers.
We think that WuNK101 will have broad impact in many different solid tumors, whether that be breast cancer or colorectal cancer or prostate cancer. And so we see WuNK101 really as a platform that can extend not only in AML, but throughout the entire solid tumor space. And for WuNK101, we've now dosed well over 50 patients with a one-to-one drug product. And we're currently in our manufacturing facilities expanding those cells to very large numbers, which we can use to dose many patients. And the trial with that dosing many patients will be open at the end of 2022.
Wugen operates in the BioGenerator lab space in the BioSTL building. BioGenerator is the startup creation and investment arm of BioSTL, providing the springboard for Wugen to grow. And Wugen has done just that, raising more than $200 million.
We've built a company now of 75 people based in St. Louis and San Diego and some remote employees.
Wugen now has more than 50 employees in its lab space at BioSTL, helping in the development of new and different immunotherapies, which uses a patient's immune system to fight cancer. If they're not working on the memory natural killer cell platform, it's not top secret that Wugen has 007.
007 really just is a play on James Bond and going after CD7. A British founder and CSO that had the opportunity to name a product because it targets CD7, which is a protein that's expressed on T-cell cancers.
For more information, go to our website, hecmedia.org.
Women of Ragtime, later on Spotlight.
Washington Avenue in downtown St. Louis, sometimes called the Loft District, used to have an even loftier nickname, Shoe Street, USA. A century ago, Washington Avenue was the center of what today would be called a fashion ecosystem, but back then was simply known as the Garment District.
In the 1920s, there were 121 clothing-related businesses that could be zippers, fabric, buttons, whatever. And then there were over 20 footwear companies in St. Louis, big companies. It literally hummed with activity. You could hear the production, the machines, crowds, carts, all kinds of comings and goings. It was a very, very busy, very alive vibe to it.
At its zenith, St. Louis's garment district was second in size only to New York.
St. Louis was founded as a fur trading village, and it just developed from there. Washington Avenue at that time had easy access down to the river and down to the levee, and then as trains came, it was just a natural.
Now, St. Louis's fashion heyday is being celebrated in a new book called Ready to Wear, written by Valerie Battle Kinzel, whose own family has ties to the footwear business. And in St. Louis, there was no business like shoe business.
During the height of the shoe industry here in St. Louis, the marketing changed a little bit, where it had been common for people to have a pair of dress shoes and a pair of everyday or play shoes. Suddenly, the marketing switched to, oh, you can have a different pair of shoes to go with this different outfit or this color. And St. Louis was at the right place at the right time for that.
In the early days, the work was steady, but the hours were long, and the pay was terrible. If you were lucky, you made a couple of bucks a week. The employees were often immigrants, or women, or both. And some were their children.
Many of the immigrants had a different idea about a work ethic, and if you were a mouth to feed, then you should be able to earn money to help pay for your food and your clothing.
St. Louis's fashion factories not only made clothing, they also manufactured ideas. The concept of junior-sized dresses was invented in St. Louis. So were harvest hats. And so was a marketing idea that today extends beyond the clothing business.
Does your shoe have a boy inside?
Some of the advertising that I grew up with actually started with companies here, like Buster Brown and Red Goose Shoes. I, as a child, remember going and getting Red Goose shoes, and there was a goose, and you pulled its neck, and an egg popped out, and you got a prize. That was an incentive, but that was something that was started here.
You can get a free boodle bag with surprises inside.
And you think about it, there's still fast food restaurants that are offering incentives to make children want to have their parents purchase the food. That was the same way for shoes manufactured here in St. Louis.
Profitable military contracts during World War I gave St. Louis's fashion businesses enough cushion to survive the Great Depression all the way up until the next military boom period, World War II. But eventually, world wars and big profits both came to an end. Cheap overseas labor began tearing at the fabric of the American garment industry. Companies like Brown Shoe tried to keep up by opening non-union plants in nearby small towns. For a while, some shoe companies even used prison labor to keep costs down. But by the 1960s, St. Louis's clothing industry started to fold. Today, only a few old-timers are still hanging on. But much like fashion itself, what's old sometimes becomes new again.
We have just as good a chance of any city in the United States to become a fashion capital again.
Susan Sherman is co-founder of the St. Louis Fashion Fund, which is trying to make St. Louis's clothing industry more cutting edge, encouraging young designers and new businesses to stay here or move here. 25% of the proceeds from internet sales of ready-to-wear will be donated to the Fashion Fund.
I'm thrilled about this book. I think that we've waited so long to really tell our story. I mean, we've told it in bits and pieces, media, we've had some national media and everything else, but to have it all in one place is really special. And I think will just be a great branding opportunity for St. Louis, because it's a St. Louis story. It's a great story.
HEC has been bringing you positive programming and award-winning content for decades. Arts, education, culture, in-depth discussions, films, and more. all in one place, hecmedia.org.
We're here at the Missouri History Museum, standing in the middle of the St. Louis Sound Gallery. This gallery covers St. Louis's entire popular music history, from the dawn of recorded sound in the late 1800s all the way up through the 2000s. We end with Nellie and the St. Lunatics. So across that range is a huge number of international stars and figures, and then also some local St. Louis legends that maybe didn't get such international fame but were huge influences here in the city locally. So people like Henry Townsend, he was a St. Louis blues musician who recorded in 9 consecutive decades, one of the longest recording careers of any musician in history. We have his piano on display. But then we also have artifacts from Josephine Baker, Scott Joplin, Tina Turner, Miles Davis, Chuck Berry, Nellie, all of the big international stars that you might recognize from St. Louis. Everyone's heard of Scott Joplin. He's the ragtime name, but he was just one of dozens of performers who came to St. Louis in the early 1900s. We had a local district here called Chestnut Valley. It was right around where Union Station is today. This was the center of the ragtime world in St. Louis, particularly a bar named the Rosebud Cafe was where all of these ragtime pianists would come and have cutting contests where they actually faced against one another to see who had the best chops. It was run by a man named Tom Turpin, who was actually the first African-American ragtime artist to produce his own piece of sheet music, the Harlem Rag, in 1897. A huge, influential individual, but a name you won't be nearly as familiar with as someone like Scott Joplin. When we talk about St. Louis's music heritage, it stretches very far back, but it also comes very much up into the present. So of course, in my own lifetime, Nellie is undeniably the name associated with St. Louis. We have pieces on display from Nellie. We actually have a microphone from his recording studio that both he and the St. Lunatics used to record albums. In the early 2000s, Nellie came out and put Midwest hip-hop on the map in a really huge way. Hip-hop was a genre often thought about as being an East Coast or West Coast genre, and here were these incredible artists right here in St. Louis. So when it comes to St. Louis and America's national music legacy, the city is very underrepresented a lot of times. We have ties to just about every major American genre you can think of, going all the way back to ragtime, blues and jazz, some of those really early genres of popular music. St. Louis was one of the formative centers where people were coming to hear these sounds for the very first time. And when you come to visit the St. Louis Sound Gallery, we want to make sure you remember to bring some headphones, because we actually have a QR code near the entry, and you can scan it with your phone and pull up a playlist of 100 different St. Louis artists. So as you're walking through the gallery, you'll see little record symbols with numbers on them. Those correspond to the playlist, and you can actually hear the artists. You know, music is the real artifact here that we want to bring attention to. So you can hear the artists as you're learning about them and seeing these artifacts from their lives. And we talk about more than just the artists as well. This exhibit dives into some of the wider context, the venues, the radio stations, even the record labels that were based here in St. Louis. One of the most legendary local venues is Mississippi Nights. We have pieces of the original bar top and stage floor from Mississippi Nights, as well as the giant logo window that was built into the outside wall of the building. That's going to be a favorite artifact, I imagine, for a lot of visitors, because they'll remember lining up right next to that window when they were getting into shows at Mississippi Nights back when they were younger. You know, when we talk as historians, we oftentimes like to separate out history. We say, well, that's immigrant history or that's baseball history. You can't actually do it so cleanly like that. Music history is history. Hidden within these artifacts, you'll find stories about race, you'll find stories about immigration, you'll find stories about food and culture and nightlife. This exhibit goes far beyond music. This is a celebration of St. Louis's history and identity.
In conjunction with St. Louis Sound, the History Museum recently presented Women of Ragtime as part of the Thursday Nights at the Museum series. The Confluence Chamber Orchestra celebrated the Women of Ragtime with a special performance featuring works of female composers and female-inspired pieces.
The women artists don't always get the same kind of attention that some of the better-known ragtime artists get. A lot of the women ragtime artists would get jobs as piano demonstrators at the department stores like Sticksbear and Fuller. One of them was Irene Giblin. She was actually only 14 years old, but she composed 6 rags. One of them is called the Chowder Rag. That's one of the better known ones by a woman composer from St. Louis. She was a piano demonstrator, and that's how she would kind of get her music out there.
St. Louis has a rich history in ragtime with Scott Joplin, Chestnut Valley, and the St. Louis World's Fair.
Ragtime artists actually weren't allowed to play in the fair. It's kind of a combination of racial discrimination, but also honestly a little bit of fear because it was so popular they thought it might overshadow other styles of music as well. Ragtime artists did play on the Pike, which was the entertainment strip of the fair, and ragtime music was available for purchase at the fair as well, the sheet music was. And lots of musicians were also inspired by the fair and wrote music, so it really was a gateway to ragtime for the world who came to St. Louis in 1904.
For the Thursday nights at the museum schedule and to learn more about St. Louis Sound, visit mohistory.org. And now the Confluence Chamber Orchestra performing Irene Giblin's The Aviator Rag. Next week, New York Times best-selling thrill master James Rollins and his new sci-fi fantasy book. Plus, meet a group working to change the perception of North City. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.